Hey, good morning, friends. It's Dr. Dre with Better Way MD, and I'm here on my 60-week mission to help my menopausal friends lose weight. We are on week 26, and if you've been watching over the last couple of weeks, you know that last week I talked about self-care, and part of that self-care was rest and sleep is what we're going to talk about today. Now, I have, of course, my good friend, the Freck, who sleeps a lot. As you might have known, he's always in the back sleeping. And dogs sleep 17 hours a day, which is a little bit more than what we need. But sleep is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And you've got to get adequate amounts of sleep. Now, I think that sleep started to become elusive for me when I was pregnant with my first kid. And at the end, I was so miserable. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't get into a good position. I woke up a million times to hobble to the bathroom. And I just remember thinking, hey, as soon as I deliver, I'm going to have some great sleep. Not realizing that newborns never sleep. And I swear, after having two kids, I think it was 8 to 10 years before I felt like my sleep deficit was caught back up. And then just in time for hot flashes and night sweats and anxiety, which as it came along with the menopause, also wrecked my sleep. So if this sounds like you, let me tell you that sleep is not a luxury, it is a necessity. Our bodies have to have sleep for cellular repair. All the damage that's done physically to our bodies have to be repaired, including damage to the vessels and to our heart. We have to have sleep for our brain to recharge. Our brains are like constantly being bombarded with information throughout the day, and sleep allows our brains to kind of file it away in different categories, get rid of the superfluous stuff, and store the memories in the amygdala, the stuff we need to know, including the new neural pathways on how we don't want to use food to buffer our feelings. So sleep is important. So if you are a poor sleeper, then it's time to change that behavior. Now, one more thing about sleep is that sleep is necessary for our weight control and for balancing our hormones. We need adequate amounts of sleep so that we can regulate our ghrelin levels, which is ghrelin's the hormone that makes us feel hungry. And it also helps us to regulate our leptin levels, which is a hormone that helps us to feel full. And our studies have shown that you need at least 7.5 hours of sleep. Anything less than that and your ghrelin level goes up. Now, if you've ever experienced a sleepless night, then you know how hungry you feel the next day. It's not in your brain, it's your ghrelin. Your ghrelin is telling your body to eat as a way to kind of try to minimize the damage from not getting enough sleep. Now, the other thing is that if you're chronically sleep deprived, like some of my shift working friends are, you also get an increase in your basal insulin levels, which can raise your glucose level, and you get increased levels of cortisol, all of which can have a negative impact on your weight. So, one final thing is that also with weight gain increases your risk of sleep apnea, which is basically where you stop breathing at night and you have to wake up to start breathing again, and that creates just really intense interrupted sleep, and quite frankly, sleep apnea is dangerous. So if you think that you have sleep apnea, either you wake up super tired in the morning or your partner says you snore, you need to go see a sleep specialist to make sure you don't. Because sleep is not only necessary for repair, but it's necessary for high functioning during the day. You have to have sleep to be able to make quick decisions. You have to be able, you need sleep to have precise motor skills and motor functioning. And did you know that lack of sleep can cause impaired driving on the level of actually being drunk? So you got to get sleep. How do you do it? First, you have to make it a priority. By making it a priority, I mean you put it in your calendar. You put in how much sleep you're going to get, and then you protect that with everything you have. Because for women, what we do is we decide we're going to get X amount of sleep, and then things come up, and we just keep cutting into our sleeping. You got to stop that habit, and you got to make sleep a priority. Now, like I said, everybody has different amounts, but 7.5 you want to shoot. If you're trying to lose weight, you want to shoot for at least 7.5. Now, as I get older, I find that I need 8 hours of sleep, and I get up at the half past the crack of dawn at like 5 o'clock. So I really need to be asleep by 9 o'clock. So I really start my bedtime regimen around 8:30. Now, I'm super lucky. I can sleep through anything. I can sleep anywhere. And I usually fall asleep like that. My problem was always staying asleep, but I've also corrected that too. Now, whatever time you decide that's your bedtime, it needs to be protected. And I'd recommend that you start with at least 30 minutes beforehand getting ready for bed. Now, I want to briefly talk about the circadian rhythm, which I know everybody's heard about, but it's your body's natural rhythm to help you get adequate amounts of sleep, and it's really impacted by light. So if you're getting up early in the morning and it's dark, or like I said, you have shift work where you're sleeping during the day, you may need to get some light therapy, like a light box to have first thing in the morning, at 20 to 30 minutes to kind of reset that circadian rhythm. And if you feel like your circadian rhythm is jacked, then you need to see a sleep specialist because they can really help you to get that back in track. Now, the big thing with the circadian rhythm is it's also about consistency. So whatever time you set your bedtime, that needs to be the same either both on the weekday and the weekend. All right, and then one other quick thing that I'm going to say is that, like I said, the light is important for your circadian rhythm. So if you can, get out and get some sunshine every single day. Set your consistent bedtime and your consistent waking time. All right, now, most of us stumble out of bed, stumble into the kitchen, and grab ourselves a cup of ambition. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about caffeine right now. Caffeine is a great stimulant when used appropriate, which means like 1 to 2 cups of coffee in the morning. More than that, you might start to affect your ability to go to sleep because caffeine actually interferes with the making of something called adenosine, which is what our brain uses to help us get ready to go to sleep. So caffeine also, we can develop a huge tolerance for it. And so if you find that you're drinking more and more coffee later and later in the day and you're still having trouble sleeping, then you need to back off your caffeine. Stop it at least by noon. And then if you may have to stop drinking it at all. And I know your brains are screaming, oh, but she doesn't understand. I've got to have caffeine. But what happens is we get into this vicious cycle of needing more and more caffeine, having trouble sleeping, needing more and more caffeine. So try to get rid of the caffeine or at least limit it to the morning. Let's talk about food and exercise. Both are necessary, but both can wreck a good night's sleep. So if you exercise later in the day, just make sure that it's not in the evening time. Like try to do it before dinner if you can, or at least an hour or so before you go to bed because exercise will increase your body temperature and you have to have a lowered body temperature to go to sleep. Eating a large meal an hour before bedtime is always a bad idea. So make sure that you eat a couple of hours before you are ready to go to sleep. And that will also maybe help reflux if you have that, which can sometimes interfere with sleep as well. Now, when you get ready to go to bed, you need a routine. Brains like routine, bodies like routine. Figure out what you need to do to kind of turn it down. So the first thing everybody tells you is you've got to get rid of your screens at least an hour before you go to bed. So no TV, no iPad, no phone. Please, please, please get off your phone. And Kindles. If you're going to read, I recommend that you read like actually a paper book. Figure out your routine for getting yourself into a relaxed mode. Turn down the lights in your room. Turn down the temperature. You really do need a lower temperature to go to sleep. That's another signal for your brain to say, oh, it's time to go to sleep. Figure out some ways to relax. Maybe you do some meditation, some yoga, some gentle stretching before you go to bed. I like to do my thought download or my journaling before I go to sleep because it allows me to get all of the crazy things in my head that may keep me awake on paper so that it's there. I don't have to think about it. I can put it away and look at it the next day. All right. So then let's talk about hot flashes and night sweats. So if those are a problem for you and they're interrupting your sleep, there are a couple of things you can do. So one, there are these little devices that you can put on your bed that will cool it down. That might help. Or two, you may want to go talk to your PCP or your gynecologist and see what else can be done about hot flashes or night sweats and getting better sleep. And then finally, if you think you have sleep apnea, please, 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 this can be so damaging medically, and it can also sometimes be a medical emergency, that if you think that that's a problem for you, please go get help from a sleep specialist. It's not nearly as arduous as you think it is. They can do sleep studies in your home now, and getting that treated will make a world of difference. All right, so I want you to focus this week on getting a good quality and certainly enough sleep. I promise you, your brain, your body, and your weight will thank you. So, one final thing I wanted to show you. If you also have trouble going to sleep because of light or sound, you may need to get a special sleep mask. Here's mine. And like, my husband totally cracks up every time I put this thing on. He's like, what the heck is that thing? All right, so do what you can to get adequate amounts of sleep, and I will see you next week. Hopefully you will be well rested. Take care.